Hey guys, today is the day. We'll be moving the worms to their new hotel. So I'm going to show you how we go about it. To start off with, I'm just having some of this screening to prevent the big pieces blocking the drain. And I've just got some flat rocks to hold that in place. It rained recently, which is perfect. I had this cardboard from packaging, this lovely cardboard material. It's already sort of in shreds in a way, and it's nice and wet. So I'm going to start by putting that in as my base. Next, I have this lovely, it's actually sort of well-matured, cured horse manure with, I think it's wood chips shavings that was donated to me from Living Hope down the road. It has been about a month since I moved my worms into their bathtub home. As you can see, they're doing great. Since the farm is now well enough established, I implemented the strategy of collecting worm castings from one side of the tub by only putting food scraps on the other end of the tub, that way attracting the worms to the food side. Let me show you how I went about setting up this worm farm and why I chose to do it the way I did. There are other methods for this and for harvesting castings. Check out the videos I've provided in the links below to see what inspired me. I was faced with the challenge of wildlife raiding my outdoor compost heap. I needed an alternative solution for converting food scraps into compost. It is mainly food scraps in compost heaps that attract wild animals. So I figured that by setting up an enclosed worm farm for composting worms to process our food scraps into worm castings, I can still get the benefit of composting food scraps. The only difference is that instead of throwing food scraps directly into an open compost heap, I first process them into worm poo in the worm farm to afterwards throw into the open compost heap. In this way, the open compost heap generally receives only biomass that is not edible, such as grass clippings, leaves, small twigs, cardboard, wood chips, a bit of wood ash, and the worm castings, of course. I wanted to set up this worm farm at little to no cost. I visited my local dump and bought a used bathtub for just 20 Rand. This is the equivalent of just over $1. I asked on our community cell phone chat group if anyone had some composting worms they could spare. And sure enough, a neighbor a few streets down gifted me with around 20 to 30 of her own worms to get me started. I started the worm farm in a big plant pot till such time as I was ready to set up the larger bathtub farm. It is important to ensure the worm farm is in the coolest, most shady spot of the garden. The biggest challenge was to secure the bathtub above ground. The other option would be to dig it into the ground, but then I would need to do some basic underground plumbing for harvesting of the worm tea. It would also pose additional challenges of attracting more wildlife if I had it at ground level, which is not always practical in an urban setting. I started off by leveling the ground as best as I could. I had some old pavers which I used to make a base, but I could not successfully hold the tub up on these loose pavers. The weedy gardener, link below, propped up his tub on poles secured into the ground. I used a metal raised bed as a base for my tub because it was all I had lying around that would work. I bought a piece of screening from the hardware shop to keep flies out, but that turned out to be a waste of money because fruit flies were still able to get in. I guess the screening holes are too big. But with regards to my experience so far, I found that the gecko lizards in this area would move into the worm farm and assist with controlling the fly population. I still need to work on the lid for the tub to keep it securely closed, but for now I just have it secured with 2 pieces of old wood. The hole at the top of the tub in the front needs to be secured shut. I have a 40 ml pipe from the drain hole below the tub to a small bucket outside the tub to collect worm tea. It is not the most ideal setup because I should really have a bigger bucket, but it will do for now. Some people who don't have a problem with wild animals and who don't mind rain getting into the worm farm keep the farm uncovered. This is doable as long as your drainage is sufficient to avoid drowning the worms. Now I just need to be diligent when summer comes to ensure the worm farm doesn't dry out. That tends to be an issue in my area. We don't struggle with frost here, but we do struggle with drought and excessive heat.